Hi guys, welcome back to the pit. What you're seeing here is the completed garage tile for my Zombicide table. There are a lot of steps involved in the construction of this tile, so in this video I will just focus on the steps regarding the building structure. So today I'd like to cover the building's facade, the side and rear exterior walls, the floors, the interior rooms and doors, and finally the roller and front office doors. The tile I'm building today is based on the garage tile, pictured here. As I explained in my previous video, I am building this tile along with 3 others to expand my Zombicide board. Please check out my previous video, Zombicide Build Part 1, to see how this tile fits into the game and for a brief introduction to Zombicide. Once I decided to build the garage tile, I looked at images of run-down or abandoned garages, mostly in the US, for inspiration. I also looked at weathered garage doors, as this would be a key feature in the model design. Once I had decided on the look I wanted, it was time for the first step, which is to build the garage facade. To do this, I took a sheet of AK 10mm thick construction foam and cut the shape of the facade out of it. I decided on a large garage door on the left hand side, around 8.5cm wide and 9cm tall. An office door slightly right of center at about 4.5cm tall and 2.5cm wide. An office window to the right hand side and 2cm off the ground. A small cavity for an external air conditioning unit, and a stepped gable. The entire facade is 15cm high and the same width as the tile itself at 25cm. I have to confess, I built this facade before I started recording videos, so today I'm just going to demo the methods I used in its construction. Firstly, let's look at the office door. Once I had decided on a position for the placement of the door, I cut a 4.5 by 2.5cm rectangle shape into the foam. I then cut some thick card into 10mm wide strips to create a door frame. I then cut and glued 2 strips on the side of the doorway and 1 across the top using wood glue. I used the same method for the garage door, cutting an 8.5 by 9cm rectangle into the foam. But this time instead of card, I used strips of balsa wood to create the door frame. I then cut the step gables into the top of the facade. I cut the top center step to be 9cm long, with 2 4cm long steps to both the left and right, preceded by a 1cm fall. I used the same balsa wood to create the step gable caps, which I glued on using liquid nails. Now for the window. Here I used a window from a local model railway manufacturer called Whiskey Models. They make a roughly 3 by 3cm window that fit the scale I'm looking for. This window, like many other model windows, has a lip at the front and a protruding section at the back that will allow you to slot it into a window-sized hole. First, I took the dimensions of the window excluding the lip. I then decided where I wanted the window positioned on the wall and drew in its dimensions. Using a precision knife, I cut out the window section. Then, after a quick cleanup, I was able to slot the window into the hole and fix it in place using wood glue. As for the AC unit, I used one that came in an MDF kit, which has a section at the back that is intended to slot into the building. This is about 1cm square and 3mm deep. Once I determined where I wanted it positioned, I cut a shallow 1cm square hole and chiseled out the foam within the square down to about 3mm. The AC unit can then slot in like so. Finally, onto the brickwork. For this build, I really wanted to create the look of a rendered building with sections of render falling away to reveal brick underneath. To achieve this, I first selected the spots I wanted to show revealed brickwork on the facade and drew a jagged break line. I then marked the brick rows by drawing a dot every 3mm in a vertical line, perpendicular to the bottom of the facade, either side of the broken section of render. Make sure that any marks outside the broken section are very light, as they are not meant to be seen. Once the rows had been marked out, I drew the brick rows. But I ensured that all the lines were within the section of broken render, and did not go past the break line. While drawing, you should probably press heavy enough to create indentations in the foam. Next, I marked out the vertical brick rows by drawing a dot every 5mm along the top and bottom of the broken section. Once everything was marked out, I drew a line along the height of every alternate brick row. Once that was complete, I marked a spot 2.5mm in from the side of the broken section, and then starting from that point, marked every 5mm across the broken section. I did this for both the top and bottom. Then, I drew a line along the height of every opposite alternate brick row, creating a grid of bricks 5mm long and 3mm high. Once the facade was built, I then constructed the side and rear external walls. I used the dimensions from the original Zombicide tile to determine that the side walls needed to be 17 cm long, while the rear wall needed to be 25 cm long, which is the total width of the tile. I chose to make the walls 12 cm high, which is a bit shorter than the facade at its shortest point. Using a precision knife, I cut the walls out of 3mm foam core board. Next, I cut a 3mm wide, 12 cm high slot into the very edge of the back side of the facade for the exterior side walls to slot into. Then, using a bit of wood glue, I fixed the side exterior walls to the facade, making sure that the side wall is flush with the edge of the facade. I do this for both sides and glue the rear wall onto the back to complete the exterior walls for the building. Now for the floors. Based on the original tile, I decided that the office and bathroom sections should have tiled floors. I also decided that I would divide the office and bathroom from the garage section using a single straight wall, rather than the step section pictured here. Once I had decided on this, I measured out the floor space for each of the rooms, ensuring that I had left a 3mm margin at the sides and at the back of the tile for the external walls to sit. To create the tiled floors, I used evergreen sidewalk sheets, like the one pictured here. I used a sheet with 9.5mm squares for the office area, and a sheet with a smaller 3.2mm squares for the bathroom area. I then cut out the sheets to fit the floor spaces I'd measured out earlier. I also decided to paint the tiled floor areas before installing them, as they would be difficult to reach later on. So, after I had cleaned and primed the floor sheets, I gave them a coat of paint. I chose white for the bathroom tiles, and light sea grey for the office tiles. After they had dried, I gave them a wash in a mixture of army painted dark tone and soft tone. Next, I dry brushed the bathroom tiles with white paint. While I decided to highlight and shade the office tiles using a mixture of light sea grey with white for some tiles, and light sea grey mixed with sky blue for others. Now that the tiled floor sections were ready, I fixed them into place using wood glue or what's known as liquid nails. And as you can see, I'm leaving that 3mm margin around the edges for the external walls. Once the floors were installed, I moved on to the interior walls and doors. Using foam core board again, I cut a rectangular piece to be 10 cm tall and 16 cm long. This would act as the wall that divides the office and bathroom from the garage area. I then marked the position of the division between the bathroom and office on this wall, and then placed two doors either side of it, both 4.5 cm tall and about 3 cm wide. I then carefully cut these doors out using a precision knife. I replicated this process for the wall that divides the office from the bathroom area, this time with one single door on the right hand side. I also made this wall 1 to 2 mm shorter to account for the tile card that it will be sitting on. Next, I created door jambs using very narrow paddle pop sticks. I placed a piece across the top and sides of the doors. Once the door jambs were glued in, I created the door architraves by cutting thin card into 2 mm wide strips. I cut these strips into pieces that will fit around the doors, one piece across the top and two up the sides, and glue them onto both sides of the doors, front and back. Once the architraves were added, I glued the two internal walls together, ensuring I left a 1 to 2 mm gap at the bottom of the wall between the office and bathroom to account for the tiles. Next, I used the same narrow paddle pop sticks to create the side skirts at the bottom of the walls. Once that was all done, I could now glue the internal walls into place. I then glued paddle pop sticks along the tops of the internal walls to seal off the exposed foam and to add strength. Once this was all dry, I used normal gaps to seal off any cracks inside or outside the building. And finally, I gave the interior a few coats of white paint. Then it was time to construct the garage door. For the garage door curtain, I used evergreen metal siding. I measured out the door dimensions, ensuring that the curtain was both wider and taller than the garage door frame. I then cut this out of the metal siding sheet. I cut a stick of near 10mm thick polystyrene to be the same width as the roller door to act as the roller door barrel. I then glued this to the top of the curtain's backside. Next, I used some small 1.5mm evergreen angle strips to act as the guide rails. I cut these strips to the curtain's length and then glued them on. I then cut two rectangles out of plain polystyrene to create the roller door barrel's housing box, which I then glue on. I bent one of the corners up to create some wear and tear. Now finally, it was time to build the office door. In terms of colour and look, I decided to go with this building as my main inspiration. So I wanted to build a door similar to this one, with a glass pane at the top and recessed panels at the bottom. Because I wanted to fit a pane of glass into the door at the end of the process, I decided to paint and weather the door first, as this would be nearly impossible to do later. Firstly, I cut out two rectangles of thick card that were the same dimensions as the office doorway. These will make up both sides of the door. I then cut a 2 by 1.5cm rectangle out of the top of both sides of the door for the glass pane. Next, I cut another rectangular door out of thin card and then cut out the same glass pane section at the top and two recessed panels down at the bottom. I then glued this onto what would be the front side of the door, ensuring that the glass pane section aligns. Once they're dry, I give both sides of the door a couple of coats of white paint. When I was happy with their colour, I gave them a light wash. Then, to create the appearance of paint chipping, I lightly stippled the doors with black grey on a rough bit of sponge, paying a lot of attention to the edges. Next, I cut out a square of clear plastic to act as the glass pane, ensuring that it was a few millimeters wider and taller than the window section in the door. When installing the glass pane, I first glued in a piece of card below the window section that was about the same thickness as the clear plastic. I first did this on the back of one half of the door. I placed the piece of clear plastic over the window section and then glue on the other half of the door. Finally, I fixed on a small rectangular piece of card to act as the door handle. I painted the door handle German grey and dry brushed it with light grey. So there we have it. That's how I built the garage tile structure for Zombicide. In my next video, which I'll be releasing soon, I'll document how I painted, detailed and weathered the garage tile exterior. If you've liked this video and would like to see more, please like and subscribe. I'd also like to thank everyone that watched, subscribed and commented on my previous videos. I've received a lot of encouragement over the past few weeks and I really appreciate it. I've also provided a link in the description that will get you 10% off any purchase from Pen and Paper Online. They sell a great range of D&D and Cyberpunk minis along with some excellent fantasy terrain, so please check them out. Thanks again for watching and see you next time.